Notice the seductive new man. He doesn't sing, he doesn't feel, he doesn't dance. He calculates. He measures his words like someone preparing poison, not to love, but to dominate. His gaze does not look for beauty, but for weaknesses. He approaches the woman as a hunter of the spirit, not the body. He doesn't want to touch your soul, he wants to invade it, disguised as a listener, a mirror, a refuge. And when she starts talking, he's already won, because she believes she opened up of her own. Free will, but she was led slowly to the exhibition itself. This is how the modern manipulator acts, with artificial tenderness and emotional strategy. Here is seduction dead and embalmed in tactics. But before we continue, I, Nietzsche, ask you, do you really want to hear these truths? Are you willing to face the mirror without makeup? If not, run away now. Go into the arms of your love gurus, your serial motivators, your plastic smiling seduction counselors. But if you can handle it, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and walk with me through this valley of masks, where desire became theater and love, a battlefield. Because here, we're not going to talk about winning hearts. Let's talk about deconstructing illusions. Do you know what seduction has become in this decaying age? A cold experiment, a battlefield for boys wearing the mask of men. They don't desire the woman, they desire control over what she reveals. The modern seducer is not a lover, but a psychological surgeon, dissecting a soul he does not intend to heal. He does not conquer with passion, but with silence, with calculated questions, with orchestrated pauses that force her to speak, expose, bleed. He listens, not out of care, but because silence makes her fill the void with confession. And every confession is ammunition. Do you think that is strength? No, that is cowardice, dressed as charm. Real strength embraces chaos. These men simply orchestrate it from a distance, too afraid to truly feel. A woman, they say, connects with the one who makes her feel. Not the one who shines, not the one who proves, but the one who destabilizes, who ignites something ancient, irrational, raw. And so the seducer becomes an architect of emotion, not out of empathy, but out of hunger. He will not share his truth, for he has none. He exists only in reaction to her. He does not love, he performs. He provokes just enough to awaken storms in her, storms he will never help calm. He plays with emotions like a child plays with fire, fascinated by the heat, unaware he will one day be burned. But here is the tragedy. He wants to be remembered, not understood. He wants to haunt her memory, not walk beside her life. And for that, he must remain a ghost. These men think they are strategists, tacticians of the heart. They speak of questions as if they were weapons. Ask her this, they whisper in their digital temples of manipulation, and watch her eyes change. But these are not questions. Born of curiosity, they are traps, hooks disguised as empathy, each one designed not to discover but to provoke, to make her feel, not known, but pierced. And yet they smile as if they've won something profound. Let me tell you the truth. The man who lives for a woman's reaction is not a master. He is a slave, a reflection molded by her emotional response. He is not guiding, he is begging, silently. Please feel something, because of me. That is not seduction. That is desperation, with a sharp pursuit. But now we reach the most perverse of pleasures, awakening her shadow. Make her reveal her wildness, they say. Give her permission to be chaos. And yes, there is power in that. There is beauty even. But what do they do with what they awaken? Nothing. They flee. They seduce the hurricane and then run from the flood. This is not connection. This is violation. To stir the depths of someone's soul without the courage to anchor yourself is the act of a coward. They unleash her. Demons, not to understand them, but to admire their own ability to summon them. And in doing so, they forget that every demon conjured without love becomes a mirror. One day, the monster they unleashed in her will rise in them, and then no tactic will save them. They speak of mystery now as if absence were a virtue. Say less, they say. Let her wonder, let her obsess. But mystery, without depth, is nothing but a costume, a silence without a soul. These men mistake withholding for allure. They think if they say little, they will become infinite in her mind. But no, my dear listener, The man who survives only in suggestion dies the moment he is seen in full light. He becomes either a disappointment or a trickster, a ghost made of shadows and half-truths. Curiosity can ignite desire, yes, but it cannot sustain respect. And respect, unlike fascination, does not evaporate. A woman may crave the unknown, but she loves the man who dares to be fully present. Not the magician who hides behind smoke and mirrors. But some do not stop there. They go deeper into the abyss of cruelty. They say, remind her of the man who broke her. Echo the rhythm of her past pain. Make her relive the wound, and she will attach that pain to you. This is not seduction. This is necromancy of the emotional kind, a ritual of possession through trauma. These men do not love women. They haunt them. They are not seeking to build, but to brand, to leave scars so personal that they become unforgettable. But let me ask, what kind of man builds connection through agony? What kind of soul drinks from a bleeding chalice and calls it wine? He is not a god of love. He is a priest of suffering. And sooner or later, those ghosts he summoned will turn on him. Now they speak of vulnerability, not as truth, but as tactic. Make her open up, they say. Make her cry, confess, crumble. Once she does, you own a piece of her soul. But when did vulnerability become a tool? When did tenderness become currency in the marketplace of control? These men orchestrate intimacy like puppeteers, pulling strings with feigned empathy, just enough softness to make her believe she is safe, understood, seen. But there is no truth in their gaze, only calculation. And what they forget, always forget, is that every performance invites an audience who might one day perform better. He who plays with emotion for gain will eventually be played, and when it happens, he will call it betrayal. But in truth, it will be justice. The final mask is perhaps the most seductive of all, danger dressed in control. Be the man she fears and craves, they whisper, the storm she can touch but never tame. And women, weary of the mundane, are drawn to it. The edge, the pulse, the thrill. But what is this thrill if not the illusion of power contained? And let me tell you something the strategists never say. No storm stays gentle forever. No wolf forgets his hunger. This performance of controlled chaos rots the man from within, for he is not expressing his truth. He is restraining it to appear desirable, and the woman, intoxicated by this balancing act, believes she is safe, until the storm no longer obeys the script, and by then, both are already drowning. They say logic is the enemy of desire, that the woman does not want to understand, she wants to feel, and so they build a temple of irrational seduction, brick by brick, with gestures that mean nothing and words that mean everything and nothing at once. But listen to me, when you abandon logic to manipulate emotion, you are not embracing the Dionysian, you are weaponizing it. You are not dancing with chaos, you are drugging it, just enough to keep her disoriented, wanting, reaching. This is not art, this is not beauty. This is a cynical game of mirrors, where every reflection is a lie, and every lie is sold as intimacy. Yes, desire is irrational, but it is sacred. Desecrate it, and you will never taste its real power, only its shadow. Then comes the illusion of emotional completion. Be the man who understands her without words, they say. Let her imagine herself in your arms long before you touch her. But again, it is not love they offer. It is anesthesia. A dream woven so delicately that she does not notice the cage until the door is already closed. He becomes the fantasy, the safe place, the whispered promise of finally. But it is a performance. He does not understand her. He mimics understanding. He does not hold space. He manufactures the illusion of space so she will fill it with her longing. And when she is deep enough, when she cannot tell fantasy from truth, he will retreat, because he was never there to stay, only to be remembered. What is love then in this theater of ghosts? Nothing but a stage prop, a forgotten relic. These men no longer seek connection. They seek influence, not intimacy, but imprint. They want to be etched into her memory like a scar that never fully heals. And so they become curators of trauma, engineers of absence, specialists in the art of half-presence. They are not lovers. They are marketers of emotion, selling themselves not for who they are, but for how they can make her feel. It is not seduction. it is branding, and worse, it is cowardice, because to truly love requires one to be seen, and these men, behind all their tactics and masks, are terrified of being seen. You think this is mastery? This cold manipulation of feminine spirit? No, this is decay. This is the death of erotic honesty. In a world where everything is a strategy, there is no place left for surrender, for madness, for real desire. Everything becomes control, and where there is only control, there is no ecstasy. I do not speak here of polite love, of transactional affection. I speak of the fire that consumes and purifies, that demands you risk your soul. But these modern seducers, they do not burn, they freeze, they orchestrate, they dissect the heart and wonder why it no longer beats. Because you cannot engineer passion, you cannot program devotion, and yet they try, and in trying, they betray the very thing they claim to seek. There is no greater illusion than the one you craft with someone else's soul. These men, oh, they believe they are untouched, that they remain above the chaos they orchestrate. But here is the irony that they dare not face. The more they manipulate, the more they lose themselves. When your identity is built on how others respond to you, you are nothing. You become a ghost haunting the rooms of other people's emotions, a seducer who cannot feel unless someone else is feeling for him. He asks, "Do I make her feel alive?" but never stops to ask, "Am I alive?" That is the tragedy. In becoming unforgettable, he forgets himself, and no applause, no obsession, no lingering memory can fill that hollowed-out core. They say women are drawn to danger, but it is not danger they crave. It is presence, intensity, a man who stands fully inside himself even when the world trembles. These imitators of danger, these choreographers of chaos, they wear masks of fire, but underneath they are ice, afraid to be touched, afraid to break. So they play the role of the untamable. But they are already caged by their own strategies. Real danger does not calculate. Real magnetism does not pretend. It simply is. And this, my dear listener, is what they envy. Not the woman's response, but the rawness of a man who can live without tricks, without scripts, without fear of being truly known. Have you noticed? The man who orchestrates emotions in others often cannot access his own. He builds palaces of seduction, towers of allure, yet lives in a cell made of mirrors, always performing, never existing. He cannot cry unless it's rehearsed. He cannot love unless it's leveraged. His entire identity is a negotiation. What must I become to make her want me? And in that question, he disappears. He becomes a ghost wearing 10 different skins, none of them his own. He fears silence, not hers but his, because in silence he would hear the emptiness he buried beneath all his techniques. He is not a man of passion, he is a man of panic, disguised as power. And still he believes he holds the advantage, because she responds, because she opens, because she attaches. But what he fails to see is this: to awaken a woman's shadow without offering her light is not dominance, it is cowardice. He wants to stir her depths but not descend into them. He wants to be the storm but fears drowning. So he plays at the edges of her soul, then retreats the moment something real emerges, and she, wounded, confused, enchanted, is left wondering if what she felt was ever real. Meanwhile, he moves on, proud of the mark he left, unaware that it was not mastery. It was vandalism. And the soul always remembers who came not to love, but to loot. This is the age of performance, not presence. The age of emotional theater, where men audition for roles they do not have the courage to live. And nowhere is this more evident than in the artifice of modern seduction. Love has become a costume, vulnerability, a script, intimacy, a game of timing and technique, and behind it all, fear. The fear of being seen without armor, the fear of being rejected as you are, not as you pretend to be. So they hide, behind charm, behind silence, behind the curated mystery. But mystery without soul is emptiness. And a woman may fall for a ghost, but she will never stay with one, not forever, because one day she will crave a hand that holds, not haunts. Let me say this clearly. There is no strength in domination through deception. There is no power in making someone feel only so you can remain untouched. That is not mastery, that is misery in disguise. The man who measures his worth by how unforgettable he becomes to others is already dead inside. He feeds on the attention he extracts, like a parasite, mistaking hunger for control. But love, true, untamed, terrifying love, demands exposure. It demands risk. It demands the possibility of being hurt. That is why they avoid it. Because they are not warriors. They are illusionists. And illusions, no matter how skillfully crafted, will always shatter when touched by truth. You see, the true tragedy is not what these men do to women. It's what they do to themselves. Every time they manipulate instead of connect, they sever a part of their own humanity. Every time they provoke instead of reveal, they bury the parts of themselves that could have known love. They trade authenticity for effect, soul for strategy. And in the silence of the night, when there is no one left to impress, they are alone. Not because the world abandoned them, but because they never allowed themselves to be truly embraced. You cannot be held if you are never real. And no echo, no obsession, no memory will hold you when you've forgotten how to be held. They laugh at sincerity. They mock openness. They call it weakness. But let me tell you, it is far easier to manipulate than to be vulnerable. Far easier to perform than to risk being seen and rejected. The true power lies not in making someone open up, but in daring to open yourself, to step into the fire without guarantees, to be honest, even when dishonesty is more effective. That is strength. That is seduction without violence. And that is what they fear most. A man who does not need to play games, because such a man cannot be controlled. He does not need to haunt. He is unforgettable because he is fully alive. The predator dressed as poet, the therapist masked as conqueror. He is not rare. He is the new standard, and society rewards him. With followers, with adoration, with books and courses on how to unlock the feminine psyche, as if the soul of a woman were a vault to be cracked, rather than a mystery to be honored, as if connection were something to be extracted, not cultivated. But remember this, the man who views intimacy as conquest will one day find himself surrounded by ruins, ruins of trust, ruins of potential, ruins of his own withered capacity to love. He will look at all he won and realize he owns nothing, not even himself. If you're still here, still watching, still breathing through this fire I have lit, then listen, share this video. Not for me, but for the men who are lost in the labyrinth of their own masks. Subscribe to this channel, only to declare I will not seduce to dominate, I will not love to conquer. I will walk a different path, one where truth replaces tactics, one where presence is not performance. You will be hated for this, mocked, because in a world addicted to illusions, the man who speaks plainly is dangerous. But be that danger, not to others, to the sickness that tells you to be anything but yourself, and to the women who have danced with these shadows, who have felt the charm that left them hollow. I say, this, it was never your fault. You did not fall because you were weak, and you fell because you were open. And in that openness, someone saw an opportunity, not a miracle. But do not let their emptiness become your cage. Do not let their games define your worth. You are not a canvas for someone else's strategy. You are not a mirror to reflect a man's illusion of power. You are a world, a chaos, a cathedral, and any man who approaches you without reverence should be turned away like a thief at the altar. There is no shame in having believed, only in continuing to believe in the lie once it has revealed itself. And the lie is this, that love must be manipulated, curated, earned through deception. No, love, if it is to mean anything at all, must be wild, must be chosen, not extracted, must be shared, not conquered. And the man who learns to love not through performance but through presence, he is rare, but he is real. And where he walks, no ghosts linger, no scars are traded for memories. Only fire, only truth, only the unbearable beauty of being fully seen and fully seeing in return. So let me strip it all bare now. The masks, the phrases, the polished performances. The man who manipulates women does not understand them. He fears them. He fears what he cannot control, what he cannot predict, and instead of surrendering to the mystery, he builds traps. He tries to reduce the divine to a formula, but in doing so, he reveals only his own poverty, because a man who truly knows himself does not need to make anyone feel anything. His presence alone speaks. His silence is not strategy, it is serenity. His words do not wound, they awaken. And his love, when it comes, does not demand surrender. It invites it. If you want to be unforgettable, don't study tactics. Burn. Burn with truth, with depth, with rage against your own cowardice. Become a man so real, so unshakable in his authenticity, that no one forgets your presence, not because you haunted them, but because you revealed them. Let others teach how to ask the perfect question. You instead become the man who asks nothing and still receives everything, because he gives everything, not to possess, not to dominate, but because he has nothing to hide. That is the seduction of gods, and it is only possible when the animal in you bows to the divine, not in her, but in yourself. So here we are, at the end of the charade. The seducer thought he was the player, but the game consumed him. He chased memory, but lost meaning. He sought power, but remained a beggar for attention. He feared being ordinary, so he became hollow. And now he walks among us like a phantom, praised by those who confuse manipulation with magnetism, envied by boys who mistake calculation for courage. But he is already dead, not in body, in soul. For what is a man without truth? What is intimacy without risk? What is seduction without sincerity? An echo, a ghost, a fading scent on a pillow that was never warm. You want to know how to truly conquer a woman. Then forget conquest. Stand before her as you are, not polished, not perfect, not rehearsed, just whole, just burning. She will feel the difference. Not because you spoke the right words, but because you no longer need to. Because you have become the storm and the shelter, the wound and the healer, the mirror and the fire. That is the end of seduction and the beginning of something holy. So if you've heard me, truly heard me, then share this. Spread it like a sword across this age of cowards. And remember, the man who dares to love without a mask is the last god left standing.